We are live.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And we're back in business with the IGR committee. And so calling the meeting to order, 1:32 on what's today? Wednesday the 7th, or what I don't even know what day. Yeah, this is the 7th. I don't know what day it is anymore. It's just everything's running together for me. That's what happens when you get to be 63. Okay. Item 2, our agenda review and minutes review. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the minutes from our January 3rd meeting? Mayor, counselor? Everything look good?
Looks good to me.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 3rd.
Move to approve minutes from January 3rd.
And I'm seconding it, and there's only 2 of us to vote, so all in favor? All right, we're good. That motion passes. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan for a review of our number 1 priority bills for this session. So Ethan, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Evans. So as I was sharing with Councilor Evans prior to the meeting is that the document that I sent out with priority 1 bills that I put together on Sunday, and since then I found out either more information related to the bills that would allow me to remove them from the priority 1 or to kind of add more clarity on them. So if there's any bills in that list that are of interest to you that you want to ask questions about, please let me know. What I'll focus in on is Council's top 3 priorities of the University District Closure Emergency Response, unhoused response funding, and then additionally housing infrastructure. And so those are the top 3 things that I've been spending, Zach and I have been spending the majority of our time past 3 days on, and can give you updates on that. And then if there's other questions related to some of those other bills, then we can definitely dive into those. Related to the university district closure and the emergency response funding, today, so the bill is House Bill 4136, and the leadership on that is with Representative Nathanson. And today we are there's a public hearing for the bill at 3 o'clock. Deputy Chief Heppel is going to attend, and I've been working with him on his testimony. And we've got a panel of Representative Nathanson, Paige Spence from the Oregon Nurses Association, because of the nurse licensure component part in the bill, which is not, we don't have a dog in that, not fight, but circus, we'll call it. and then Chief Heppel, and then also Eve Gray from Lane County Health and Human Services is going to be presenting to talk a little bit about what the county's thinking related to some of the innovation funds that would be directed towards the county, and that ideally the city would be eligible for. So we've also spent time, we've had meetings with every single member of the healthcare committee, talked to them, both sides of the aisle, and we've had broad support for the bill. We believe it'll get out of committee soon. Today's a public hearing. There'll be a work session, and it will likely go to Ways and Means. And so then we will start having conversations with the subcommittee that it heads to, which is likely Human Services. And that's when then the funding component part starts. And so I'm working with Zach, and we're identifying how to talk with budget writers, leverage our leadership positions from our delegation, and ensuring that it gets written on into the final budget bill ideally, and funding gets allocated. So that'll be, we won't know that more than likely until the end of the legislative session, March 10th or so. Mayor Vins.
Yeah, just a confirmation. This is the 3 pieces that we've
talked about, right? It's the equipment piece for the basic life support, and then the innovation funding for the nurse navigator and the CRO. Is that right?
Yes, great question, Mayor. So the last time that I was at this body talking about the bill, we hadn't seen a copy of the bill yet. When the bill was finally, the legislative concept as a draft was shared with us about 2 weeks ago, or just it was right before legislative days. There was a bit of a surprise. The bill allocated funds directly to Lane County rather than to City of Eugene. And then through discussions with Lane County and internal or our teams, we figured out that there's three component parts in this bill. The first being the nurse licensure, the second being what's called access to healthcare in Lane County, and then the third being a OHA report, review and report. On the second part, access to Lane County, there's two component pieces in there. One is $1.3 million for a BLS ambulance, which is what we had talked about initially. And that would go to Lane County, but it would be in the bill earmarked to say 100% pass through to City of Eugene. The second component part of the access to Lane County element is funding for innovation programs. And we had the bill amended so that it would be clear that emergency medical systems, EMS, emergency medical services, EMS, would be an eligible part of that innovation, and it directs Lane County to run an RFP, a competitive RFP process to identify and fund innovations to the healthcare access. And so transportation, that could also include elements within Lane County's services. And so it really kind of broadens it on out. And that we came to support that the position of support after negotiation discussion with Lane County and got some pieces there. So that's how it's working on out. Does that answer your question, Mayor Venus? Perfect. Okay. Any other questions on that item on 4136?
Yeah. Is there any part of the three components that that you just outlined that would address besides the BLS ambulance and all of that, where would we be able to see where we can call some of that funding to support urgent care in West Eugene as part of a strategy for us to replace what Peace Health has closed down on West 11th? Or is that something that we can't kind of wiggle any funding out of to cover at least part of that, restoring that service in that area?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't necessarily have a definitive answer. What I believe is that urgent care is, by definition, would be eligible for the RFP, the competitive grant funds under the innovation piece. And so if that's something that Lane County and Eugene and looks at, or other providers, if maybe there's a healthcare provider or a CCO are interested in providing a new service out there or adjusting a service out there, that could be eligible. My understanding is that could be eligible under the grant program that Lane County would be administering under the innovations in healthcare piece.
So following that up, could Lane County, in lieu of putting an RFP out for a CCO or whoever would be the provider, could they intervene as the bridge provider for that service?
Potentially. I mean, I think that's going to be.
I know they don't have the staffing right now, but
yeah, I mean, I think that all of that is on the table. And so it's kind of like, and that's one of the reasons why in discussions when the bill was amended, and it wasn't amended when it was introduced, the funding was going to Lane County because of the interest to have that innovation funding be at a broader set of services than what we had put on the table from what the city of Eugene would provide through our EMS system. So we'll see what happens in that process.
Okay, just stay tuned.
Yeah, we first got to get it past the finish line, get it funded. So if there's no other questions on that one, I'll move on to then unhoused response. And so Senate Bill 1530, and it's not on our list, but now I will add it to our list, but it wasn't clear what was the vehicle for some of the funding requests we've had. But now we understand that Senate Bill 1530 has got $65 million allocated for emergency shelter to OHCS. There's two questions that we have right now. One is eligibility. We've got two sites. Well, we've got our rest stop sites and 310 Garfield, which are not eligible currently under OHCS guidelines for receiving funds. And so we'd like to change that, and now's the time. So we're working on working with members in the House, and then also members that are on a joint committee from where that bill will go. And then we'll also work on the Senate side to enter into the record questions and ideally have OHCS provide clarity on how they have established their eligibility requirements, what kind of standards they're using, what they're referencing as to say what's eligible and what's not eligible, because it's unclear at this point what they're basing their eligibility requirements are. Additionally, there's the distribution of the dollars and the funding. So there's no direction to the agency as to how to distribute the dollars. And so, as you can imagine, cities, but not just cities, but service providers across the state want to see those funds be directly allocated to the providers rather than go through either the MAC, which has been in the process through the all-in, which has been a little bit of a challenge for cities and service providers to access those dollars, or to counties or directly from OHCS. And so we're working to get clarity on those, both the eligibility and the distribution of those dollars currently. And so I'm working hand in hand with League of Oregon Cities and a couple other cities, and we're actively working that in a pretty fast and furious environment here in the Capitol. So that, I think, 65 million is hopefully going to be allocated. And then the question is, what's eligible and how's it going to be distributed? And we want to kind of help to smooth the path so that as much of Eugene's shelter options are eligible for state funding, and also that Eugene would be able to receive those funds directly rather than through another intermediary. And so that process is happening. Questions on that?
Yeah, I guess sort of the sort of landscape. I mean, our local delegation is our local delegation sort of supportive of understanding and supportive of our priority that this not go through the MAC, and then just sort of curious about the county. Are we at cross purposes with the county and the legislature over this?
Yeah, so the first question on delegation, I had a meeting earlier today with John Prince, who is Representative Fahey's local person, and I've asked for time with the representative. I've been keeping her staff and the representative informed. As House Majority Leader and ideally the next speaker, she's consumed with a lot of the operations of the and politics within the building, working on major issues. So I have requested some time with Representative Fahey to continue to press and ask for her position and opinion. And so she's really the prime mover. I will also engage the full delegation as soon as we get kind of clarity as to like what our pathway is, and if we need to have delegation and or caucus support to actually have these changes. And then the second part related to Lane County, I think at this point, I we're not going to be collaborative related to, like, the Lane County would like to see the MAC process continue to be funded. And I think that if we have the opportunity to receive funds directly, I've received direction from our staff that says we would prefer to have funds directly allocated to the city and to service providers, and that's in alignment with other cities across the state and with League of Oregon Cities position. So to me, I think that this is just another point of this, that I know what their position is going to be, and going and working with them is it's time consuming in a very time constrained environment.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And we do have a cell meeting tomorrow morning, or excuse me, Friday morning, with Lane County, Springfield, Eugene. This will probably be part of the discussion. We're going to do a legislative update. I've been working with Alex Kyler in the building on the 4136. But there's just areas where we may just have a different position, and I'm not going to try to collaborate to get on the same page. All right. Thanks for those questions. Any other questions about unhoused response? No. Okay. The second part is going to be, excuse me, I'm just getting a text from Nathanson. Just 1 second. Can you get Heppel registered to testify for 4136? So on the, sorry. So on the housing infrastructure item, Crow Road. So I've submitted that to the capital construction subcommittee for funding through that process. As I shared earlier, there's a new revenue forecast that has an additional $557 million. So ideally, some of that will be allocated in the capital construction process. Additionally, under Senate Bill 1537, which is the governor's housing bill, there is a $200 million infrastructure for housing proposal, and that to this point has only been for site-specific projects. And so 70-unit affordable housing project could be eligible for some of those funds. Our needs, which would be system-level infrastructure, are not eligible. That has been a consistent theme of our feedback to the governor's office, and when we engage our delegation to say, we need both. It's great to have site-specific. We also need to have funding for our system infrastructure improvements and additions. And an example is the Crow Road project. What we've heard is that there's going to be an amendment that's forthcoming on that bill that will expand the definition and eligibility of those infrastructure dollars under that $200 million program. And if that's the case, then we'll look at the details, and potentially that could, we could also see that our infrastructure projects could be eligible underneath that. We do need to see the details on that and understand what the requirements would be, because on the site-specific dollars, there's a affordability requirement, so it wouldn't be going to middle income or to market rate. It would only be for affordable housing with specific AMI requirements. So we'll see what happens related to that. Otherwise, we're working. There's another kind of dark horse, the stalking horse of another infrastructure bill that could have a list of projects, larger projects that would be detailed on out in an end of session budget bill. So in all of the conversations, this is the $65,000 question amongst lobbyists and then also amongst legislators, is where is this going to end on up? What's the vehicle? How is this working? And I've had these conversations with some of our legislators and haven't gotten a lot of clarity as to what the process is going to be. I think it's just continuing to kind of work through, through the Democratic caucus and potentially in negotiations with between the two, Republican and House. And so I feel really confident that by the end of the session, Crow Road will get some level of funding allocated to it through one of the processes that we're kind of have our fingers in a number of different funding pies and processes. But right now, having the crystal ball and figuring out what that end vehicle is going to be is just continuing to stay engaged and be informed. Questions on that?
Ethan, as part of Pro Road infrastructure, is there anything in there that would allow us to fund, transportation amenities? Because one of the issues that was brought to my attention by some constituents that reached out to me was, there's really not a whole lot of road access into that area. I mean, basically, when you go past 18th Street, you just basically fall off the map, and you've got one or two ways in and out, and we really need to be able to expand infrastructure in terms of roads and transit.
Yep.
So is that part of the package, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I wasn't sure. Well, we put into there was a Jennifer Willer and her team, they reviewed what we had proposed last year, and they said, oh, the project's changed, costs have increased, but we also want to add in, I think at the time it was just wastewater and stormwater, but they figured let's put in water because we don't know if UWeb's got it on their construction list. And then additionally, they said there's going to be some transportation needs. And so I think right now the $8.5 million package total, and the city would provide some of that, has water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation, not like full cityscape, curb, gutter, sidewalk, all of that, but enough transportation infrastructure to address, I think, what you were talking about, Councilor Evans, is at least better access. So yes. Yeah,
because you got to have more than one way in and out of there, when you're adding, I don't know how many units we're proposing that would be funded with that, with the bill.
And some of those, like if there's a subdivision within that area, that's part of their requirements to for the private development to put in the the residential streets, but some of those more kind of the circulator, I need Rob Interfeld to give you the exact. I don't think transit is
18th and West 11th is.
Yeah, I don't think transit is involved, and so that would be an LTD thing. If they wanted to increase transit stops out there, they would need to do that. But so that's not part of the bill. So when you asked about transit, that's not part of it.
Well, we got to get the houses and people out there first.
Yeah. And so then that's it for my top 3 items that we're working on. Are there any questions about any of that stuff? Are there any questions related to the priority 1 bill? Any of those bills that were sent on out? And I will also send out an email, probably not on Friday, but before Monday, to full mayor and council and city manager listserv that gives the weekly update on IGR related items per the direction from city council.
You got it. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order, Mayor? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess just there are a lot of other pieces to SB 1537. And I don't know if there are any other, I mean, I'm just thinking about, I know there are a lot of issues around some of those pieces, so I don't know how I don't know if you want to dive into all of those details, but I don't know if there are any high points that you might want to share with us, other aspects.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. So 1537, and then also on the House side 4163 or something like that. That was another bill that's it's got some Eugene piece that Alyssa Hanson and Lauren Summers have had to spend an enormous amount of time on because of the technical land use stuff. We've got it to a point where we think it's like, all right, we could be silent on it from here on out. Regarding the 1537, there is a number of pieces. The HAPO So we don't, from a city standpoint, we don't like it. We don't think it's needed. LOC's weighing in on that, and I'm like, fine to have LOC carry the water on that. There's no reason why we need to poke our head up outside of the foxhole on that at this point. It's happening. The more that we interject our opinion in there, the more we lose any kind of relational value with key people in our delegation and the governor's office. We've been giving them feedback and LOC's testimony, and I just spoke with Ariel Nelson, and she's going to be giving testimony. I likely will be giving testimony on 1537 tomorrow. And we're going to actually at 2:00, we're going to, or whenever I can get over there, we're going to have that coordination meeting. The second part is that there's the UGB expansion. We're pretty much neutral on that because it's a may, it's not a shall. So it would be a local control issue. If the city council wanted to expand the UGB, you would then have an expedited way to do that if you chose to take that on. There's a land use adjustment piece that we don't like, but there's an exemption in it that we meet. And so it's a thing of like, well, we would prefer not to have it in there, but if it push comes to shove, the exemption, we would just need to show that we meet the requirements of the exemption, which we've provided input for months on, and they've actually taken that into account and listened to us and made it so that we would be able to meet the exemption from what were our processes right now. There's a revolving loan fund, and that part is problematic just because we probably wouldn't use it. But in a meeting last week, I gave that input, and Representative Marsh, she reached out to me and she said, I want to talk with you more about how we can fix this. And so there potentially could be some amendments to that. And I've got a meeting with her on Friday with some of our city staff, and we met earlier this week to go through like how could make it better to have it more useful, because it's roughly $200 million that would be allocated to a revolving loan fund that we potentially wouldn't use because there's not a lot of value in the way that the program's structured.
Oh, gosh.
And then there's the infrastructure dollars, which is what I was talking about, that if there's an amendment that would allow us to access those dollars in a more meaningful way. So those are the main component pieces of it. And so, and I'm kind of leaning on LOC, and then there's a couple other cities that have got really big problems with some of this stuff. And I'm like, hey, you guys be out in front on that. We're good to keep our powder dry and focus in on the things that will have major benefit for us.
Oh, well,
the revolving loan fund, specifically, what is that targeting? Are we looking at incubation businesses, or what?
No,
because this is a housing bill, right?
It's a housing bill, and the revolving loan fund would be for a kind of middle income, affordable, like 80 to 120% AMI projects, and it is a TIF style program that the city would have to develop. We would have to work with OHCS to get approval. We'd have to do stuff on the county assessors. I mean, there's just a number of moving.
We would have to add staff to manage it.
Yeah, and so as we looked at it, it was a tool that would get rusty in the tool shed because we probably wouldn't use it. We're making some comments to say this is how, if you made changes to the program where we could use it. But it's something where we're like, and this is kind of in line with the infrastructure pieces. We say, hey, we need X, and then legislators say, well, here's Y. And we say, well, okay, that's great. We wanted something out of the alphabet, but we really wanted X, and we spent a lot of time figuring out what X is. Can we get closer to X? So we're just trying to get closer to X.
Well, I want to thank you for that, because a lot of these were pretty nerve-wracking issues as they emerged. So I'm happy that we can sort of keep our heads down on some of the more explosive ones. And
yeah, and I think the major thing is that you will likely hear different calls for action from different bodies.
Yeah.
And the city of Eugene for the past 6 months has had our subject matter experts reviewing and engaging with the governor's office, with our legislators. And so we've been able to give a lot of feedback, and it is what it is at this point. And so we're just hoping that, you know, our input can prevail, and that, and recognize that sometimes, like in House Bill 2001 from 2018 or 2019, whenever it was, the state's going to do what the state's going to do. And so, so that's where we are at this point. We're just moving through that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that.
Yep.
All right, is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, I'll adjourn this meeting, and Ethan, go forth and do good.
Great. Thank you all for having a condensed meeting. And if you have any questions or anything comes on up that you have questions on or concerns about, please just shoot me an email or text me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Thanks so much, Ethan.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.